Did you guys hear that little
Fubo.
chime a couple seconds ago?
Yeah.
That's our guy, Brian Baldinger, joining the show. We love this segment. And Brian, I mean, you're coming in off some breaking news for the Broncos this morning. Want to get your reaction to the Broncos, who signed Randy Gregory to a 5-year, $70 million contract just 18 months ago, releasing him today. What type of message does this send to the team?
Well, that wasn't, Sean Payton signing. That's Sean Payton looking at and evaluating this roster, going, okay, we've got the 32nd ranked defense in football. We couldn't stop Justin Fields in the first half. We can't get to the quarterback. And Randy Gregory is supposed to be this high price ticket. Look, Sean Payton watched Cam Jordan line up and beat every single tackle in this league, for the last 12 years. He knows what a great defensive end looks like. Randy Gregory couldn't beat a rookie tackle last week. He couldn't beat a backup left tackle last week. You go back to the week before against Miami. Austin Jackson is an average right tackle in this business. He gets covered up because the coach is really smart. He couldn't beat any of those guys. So if you're not winning and you're not producing and you're from another regime, you send the message. Like, it could be the next person from the former regime, right, that isn't producing. Like, he'll show him the door. Sean Payton has no problem cutting ties with players that just don't fit what he's looking for.
I love that. I feel like that's exactly what Sean needs to do. Cut everybody who's not working out to your scheme. I saw that your breakdown of Jaleel McLaughlin's touchdown, his screen. I thought it was very insightful, and I love the way that you pointed out Quinn Miners. The offensive line, I feel like, played much better that game and was able to get out and block people in space for the running backs to create more offense. I wanted you to just talk a little bit about what you saw from the offensive line and how much better they looked last week as opposed to other weeks.
Well, I mean, honestly, the only worst defense compared to Denver's at this point, in large part because of what happened in Miami or Chicago. I mean, Chicago, they made no sense what they were doing. Now, they blitzed a lot last week because the week before against Kansas City, they just sat there in these zones and Pat Mahomes just cut them up. So they blitzed a lot more. They played a lot harder. They did a few things schematically. But, look, I've been watching Jaleel since training camp, honestly. And sometimes training camp, you can be fooled. You can. You can go, okay, it's preseason. Who's out there? Who's he beat? But you can't deny his foot quickness and his vision. And, not everybody could catch a little 3-count screen and take it to the house. Christian McCaffrey could do it. Not everybody can do it. And he did that. And then he made a number of runs. Like, he looked like the only explosive player they had for the first 3 quarters of that game. And that's not to knock Samaje or anybody else. Yeah. Like, he just looks like he needs more touches. But the screen, that's a great finish. It's a great finish. You out there. Quinn did a good job getting out front, getting downfield. He ran right behind Highway 77 right there. That was a nice play.
Yeah, I think from the fan perspective here in Denver, after that game, obviously we're high on Jaleel McLaughlin. We're high on Marvin Mims. But here in Denver, we're feeling some lows. Like, okay, we wanted to win that game, but they didn't look good in the first half and XYZ. From the national perspective, what is the reaction to the Broncos beating the Bears? Because here in Denver, and Sean Payton's reaction was like, who cares? We should have beat them by a lot more, and we should be a better team overall.
I mean, that's kind of it. Honestly, but there's nothing like getting on a plane ride and going home with the win.
Yeah.
You put up 17 points in the fourth quarter. You can look at it a lot of ways. Like, how were we down? What was it, 28-7, whatever it was. Like, how were we down like that? But we came back. So, and you did it with a lot of young guys and been doing it with young guys. Maybe that's the future. Marvin Mims been doing it now 2 weeks in a row. Jaleel got his big opportunity last week, and he produced. I don't know. I think those kids have opened Sean Payton's eyes, period. And I think you're going to see a lot more of them. So, look, it's a win. They're not the worst team in the league. After they probably felt that way on the ride home from Miami, but that's a good feeling winning that game.
Yeah, and this next game coming up for the Broncos has all the juice for off-field reasons. Broncos, Jets playing. I know you're close to the Jets organization. What's this game like for Nathaniel Hackett and the Jets? Because Sean Payton in training camp not only called out Nathaniel Hackett, but he also called out the Jets organization for doing hard knocks, even though that wasn't their choice to do. They were forced on that. But what's the vibe for the Jets going into this game?
Well, it's motivation. It's straight motivation, And look, they need a win. They've lost 3 in a row. They had a chance to beat the world champions last week. They couldn't finish it. They looked better last week than they did the week before against the Patriots. So, I think they're going to start the same offensive line for the 3rd week in a row for probably the first time in years. So like the quarterback made some plays that he hadn't made, and he, outside of the fumble, took care of the ball. Look, what Sean said, he said, and they can use it any way they want. It really isn't going to matter until you get on the field. And nobody's going to play harder because Sean Payton said something about their offense coordinator. And so it's really about preparation this week. I mean, the Jets beat them last year. It came down to final throws, and Sauce Gardner was just better than Cortland Sutton. At the very end of that game, I'm sure everybody's watching those plays all over again. And it might come down to those kind of throws at the end this year with Russell Wilson and Marvin Mims or Cortland, whoever. So, or Brandon Johnson, whoever it might be. So I think, it'll get talked about. It's, the NFL is awesome at, they don't have to write any storylines. They create themselves. This got started back in July. That's fine. I've talked to Nathaniel Hackett about it. One day he'll come clean about his experience in Denver, but it's not the time. It's not the place. And so it wasn't just his doing. It was, it was an entire organization failure last year. Sean's got to clean it up, and I'm sure that was part of it, part of him saying that. It's time to clean this mess up. You can't put it on the doorstep of Nathaniel Hackett. But, like everyone's going to talk about it. Those sound bites will be played all week long, all the pregame shows on Sunday. But at the end of the day, the players got to kind of block it all out, and they got to find both teams desperately need a win and feel like they can win the game.
Yeah, I think this is a great matchup for the Broncos right now. This is a really good defense that they're going up against the offense that's, trying to put things together and looking better week in and week out. You talked about Cortland and Sauce. I think this is a huge matchup, not only for the team, but for Cortland. I think this is a way for him to show that he can be an elite wide receiver in the NFL and really be able to make plays. Are there any other matchups in this game that you're excited to see and guys that you really feel like need to compete in order to help their team win?
Well, the Jets are, Jets and really all the best defenses in the NFL right now. And I mean, it's in light of, Randy Gregory, getting shown the door today. Honestly, the best defenses are all built around a front four and where all the resources go there. And the Jets have spent the last 2 number 1 draft picks on defensive ends, free agencies, Carl Lawson, Quentin Williams just got a $100 million contract this year. I mean, all the resources are in their front. And so if you ask me what's the next matchup, I go, you got to handle Quentin Williams. I mean, Chris Jones can do it. Aaron Donald can do it. Quentin Williams can do it. Jeffrey Simmons. There's 6 guys in this league that can literally dominate a game from the interior. And so if you allow yourself to be one-on-one, if Cushenberry or Quinn or you pick a guy, if they're one-on-one with Quentin Williams, it's a handful. Not many guys can handle him. He's powerful. He's slippery. And he plays hard, and he's sick of losing. So that'd be one matchup for sure. And then whoever, whether they put Surtain on Garrett Wilson, I don't know if he'll travel, but Garrett's their best offensive player. And so the ball's going to him. 3rd down, red zone, they need a touchdown, go balls, they're going to Garrett. He's an elite player. But so is Surtain. So maybe this is a week where you see that kind of a matchup. I mean, I'd pay StubHub, inflated prices to go watch that matchup.
Speaking of Garrett Wilson and the Jets offense, Zach Wilson, he's obviously coming off a great game. He went, 28 of 39, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns in a game which many people are saying, the Jets were absolutely robbed in that game. Did Zach Wilson finally hit his stride with Nathaniel Hackett, or was that just kind of an outlier because the Chiefs' minds are just flooded with Taylor Swift songs right now?
I don't think the defense is thinking about, what Taylor Swift's doing up in her box. That's a great, I thought the Chiefs were the best defensive football going into that game.
For sure.
Now, they're still very good. I mean, their 2 corners can run with anybody. They're built well, and they got a great coordinator. I mean, the guy's won 3 Super Bowls now as a defensive coordinator, but Steve Spagnuolo. But I think that you have to. I think Zach Wilson. All you had to do is look at his teammates at the end of that game. Like, if anybody thought that this locker room was splintered in New York and the players are like, go trade for Kirk Cousins, do something crazy.
Right.
Like, the players had his back, and that can only build confidence with him. And be honest with you, I like Nathaniel Hackett. I don't, whatever happened in Denver happened, but I like him. I've known him a long time. I think he's a good teacher. Everybody has to execute whatever the plan is, whatever the plays are. It's up to the players. The coach can only call the plays, put the design together. But I believe that, Zach Wilson, I was as frustrated with him as anybody else, any fan in New York. But he showed me a lot last week. And this game is all about building kids' confidence. And when they get confidence sometimes, they play even beyond their talent level. So who knows? Like, I think he's going to hit it pretty confident this week. But maybe that's up to Denver to take it out of him.
So, Baldy, that leads into my next question perfectly. Two struggling units through this season. The Jets offense, they did pick up a little steam, but still a struggling unit. Going up against the Broncos defense, and I mean, you said it, the worst defense in the NFL in terms of points per game. They made Justin Fields look great last week, specifically in the first half. Who has the advantage between these two groups that are going up against each other?
I always thought that it's a hard place to play in Denver. I played up there in my career 7 times. I didn't win one stinking game. I always thought it was just a hard place to play. So, but that's not, that's kind of a mental thing. I don't know where the Jets are traveling or whatever. But I think right now, the Denver's defense, okay, they pitched a shutout in the fourth quarter. Okay, they played much better. Nick Bonito got one, scored one. Maybe it's time, some of these young kids that are playing out there right now, maybe it's time just to grow up and be NFL players and realize that, the defense has got to make plays in this business. They got to find a way to do it. Off bootlegs, interceptions, tip balls, whatever it is. Not going to be good to see them knock a ball loose, for crying out loud. So those kind of things, it's on the defense. So I think it's up to the Denver's defense to show up and see if they can build off what they did in the second half last week. I
love that. Final question for you. Does Denver's defense show up? Do the Broncos get the win over the Jets here?
I'm not good at the prediction game. I'm really not. But I'll say this. I think, because of what Sean said this summer, this game is going to have a lot of emotion to it. You're going to see Jet players saying things on the sideline to Sean. Sean's probably going to give it right back to him, sideline stuff. It's going to be chippy. I expect this game to be highly intense. It's not going to be 2 1-3 teams going out. I think it's going to be played at a much higher intensity level. And so usually in those kind of games, it's who can actually stay calm in the storm of all that comes out to be the winner.
I love it. I love it. We're looking forward to this game. We're looking forward to talking to you next week when the Broncos have a short week playing the Chiefs. Thanks so much for your awesome insight, Brian.
Don't ask me how many games in a row the Broncos have lost to the Chiefs. All right, I don't want to say that.
We've lost count.
Oh, we know all too well.
Next week. All right. Yeah. All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Baldy.
Talk next week.